Okay, this is going to be my long-term video review here of the SMSL SU10 DAC and preamplifier. First, getting started with a quick and brief little unit tour of the device itself. Here at the front of the unit, there isn't a whole lot to see. We've got the SMSL SU10 branding up top. We have a fully functional, I'm not sure if this is an LCD or LED display. I will put it on the video and subtitles there. With a functional both volume rocker, volume knob, also as a menu toggle switch integrated in one. Moving on to the rear end of the unit, this is where stuff gets a little more interesting here. So the far side here, we've got our IEC power inlet. Beside that, we've got a USB Type B input. Right beside that, we've got an optical audio input. Right above that, we've got a USB Type C input. Beside that, we've got a coax input. Beside that, we've got an I2S or I2S. Looks like an HDMI input right over there. Beside that, we've got a port for our Bluetooth antenna, because this does also include Bluetooth. Beside that, we've got an IES/eBoot input right over there. That would be that guy right there. Finally, beside that, we've got our balanced XLR outputs and our single-ended RCA outputs. So that should do it in terms of the tour of this device. Okay, in terms of the actual build quality of the unit, it is a very nice, I believe this is one piece of solid aluminum or steel. I'm not too sure what kind of quality material they used for this thing here, but it feels absolutely phenomenal when it's in the hand. This feels like it will be built to last you a lifetime, if not years on end. We got beautiful rounded edges here on the device itself. It has some weight, it has some heft to it. In terms of build quality, this is getting a solid 10 out of 10 for me. All right, diving into some of the specs here of the SMSL SU10 DAC and preamplifier. This utilizes dual ESS Technologies 9038 Pro DAC chips. This has two built-in linear power supplies, one dedicated to the analog output section and one dedicated to the digital input section. This also utilizes 21 OPA 1612 op amps for that very powerful, that very hefty output stage. In terms of the raw measurements of the SMSL SU10, this thing simply measures incredibly well. 0.00005% THD, that was 4 zeros. So in terms of measurements, this thing is probably at the very top of the chart in terms of raw, clean, clear measurements. This device also utilizes the third generation of XMOS XU316 USB. This also utilizes the third generation of XMOS XU316 USB interface. This will decode DSD up to 512. This is a 32-bit DAC going from 16 kilohertz all the way up to 768 kilohertz at 32-bit. In terms of the Bluetooth codecs, this device will support LDAC, aptX, HD, SBC, and AAC in terms of its wireless Bluetooth capabilities. This also has 7 different types of PCM digital filters you can play around with. So I think that should wrap up most of the specs here of the SU10. All right, next, let's dive into the sound quality and sound characteristics presented and outlined here on the SMSL SU10. Using this primarily as a DAC and a preamp from either the RCA single-ended outputs or the balanced XLR outputs. Also using this primarily as a USB DAC from my Windows 11 Pro PC. utilizing mainly the USB Type B output, or I should say input, of the SU10. The sound I'm about to describe to you applies for both single-ended and balanced XLR output from this unit over here. Now, because the SU10 here utilizes dual linear power supplies internally, one dedicated to the digital input and one dedicated to the analog output stage, that to me is where this unit truly shines in terms of just raw, straight output power. The output stage of this DAC is extremely strong. In terms of the voltage output rating for this DAC, it will do, I believe, 5.2 VRMS from the XLR output and 2.5 VRMS from the single-ended RCA output, meaning it has a very powerful, a very high current output stage, either single-ended or balanced through the rear end of the unit. Also being equipped with 21 OPA op amps, that also really helps, along with the dual linear power supplies, at giving you a very strong output stage from the DAC, either single-ended or balanced XLR. Now, in terms of the sound characteristics, the sound quality here of the SU10, simply put, this combines both exceptional detail, clarity, and transparency in your music. Whatever signal you're feeding into this, it will redistribute that into extremely transparent, clean, clear, large, open, airy soundstage, at the same time having a very, I shouldn't say very, but at the same time having a rich and slightly warm leaning mid-range and bass in terms of its sound quality here. It does have that very sparkly, energetic treble, but it also has a very lush and thick, rich mid-range in terms of its sound quality, its sound output. It also has a very deep, a very large and wide, airy soundstage. So for the amount of time owning this DAC here, I will also describe its sound as extremely well balanced, having that sparkly, energetic, highly detailed treble, but also having a rich and very slightly warm leaning mid-range. Good open airy soundstage, very, very well balanced in my opinion. The highs on this never got too overly bright or too analytical, even though it is a very analytical and a very detailed sounding DAC. It never got harsh, it never got fatiguing, even when listening to this hours on end. It is, of course, in my opinion, also a very fun sounding, a very engaging sounding, a very musical sounding DAC, having fed multiple different headphone amplifiers and using multiple different headphones on those headphone amps, primarily being fed here from the SU10. It's uber transparent, razor sharp precision, a very large, a very wide, open, airy soundstage with that slight hint of warmth there in the mid-range, in the mid-bass. Great imaging, fantastic image separation. It didn't matter what amp I fed from this here, it always maintained that crystal clean clarity, detail, and that slightly ever so warm leaning mid-range. Also sounding very, very natural. Even though this is a Delta Sigma DAC utilizing dual 9038 Pro DAC chips, it's a very fast sounding, a very engaging sounding, lifelike, natural sounding DAC. To me, it never sounded too electronic-y, too Delta Sigma-y, if that makes any sense, when pairing this with the amount of amps I had paired with it. So you probably can listen to all types of genres of music, being rock, classical, EDM, with this DAC here for hours on end, really without getting that listening fatigue that a lot of other Delta Sigma DACs, specifically ones that utilize the 9038 Pro DAC chips, a lot of toppings and a lot of other SMSL DACs, specifically the ones that use those tiny little switch mode transformers, those switch mode power supplies. From those you probably do and you can probably get a little bit of listening fatigue. With this, however, because it leans ever so slightly warm, it still maintains that energetic treble without getting fatiguing, in my opinion, even for listening to this hours on end. So that essentially wraps up how I would describe the sound quality and sound characteristics coming from this fabulous SMSL SU10 here. In my opinion, it probably is one, if not the most cleanest, transparent, fun and engaging sounding DACs I have used for an extensive period of time here on the channel, here in this hobby, and having used it with multiple different headphone amplifiers and multiple different headphones and IEMs. SMSL, in my opinion, did a fabulous job integrating dual 9038 Pro DAC chips in this SU10 here. And because of all that, this DAC, to my ears, to my pairings that I've used it with, it never ever sounded overly digital. It always had that very rich, strong mid-range while maintaining that extreme quality of detail and transparency. SMSL really did a great job implementing dual DAC chips along with dual separate linear power supplies here in this unit, really giving off a very transparent, energetic, and rich sound quality coming from the SU10 here. So if you want to get that Delta Sigma fast, speedy, tight, energetic sound while not getting overly analytical with a hint of that R2R sound, this might just be the absolute perfect DAC for you, but it does come at a price. This is not the cheapest DAC right now on the market. But if you're after that transparent, quick, energetic Delta Sigma sound with some R2R sound characteristics, especially in that mid-range, this DAC may just be the DAC for you folks. So if you enjoyed this video, if you enjoyed this review, leave a comment down in the comment section below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. I really am trying to pump out a lot of audio reviews here in the near future. I've got a lot of stuff lined up in the near future. So that should conclude my long-term video review and use case here from the SMSL SU10. Until next time, folks, I'll catch you all later.